Hi, my name is Karen Holmes. I'm the founder and director of the World Peace Organization for the One World Government. First of all, I'd like to wish everyone in the United States a happy 4th of July. Our Independence Day is important to each and every single one of us. We don't have to be one political party. We all love the Constitution and what it does for us. Some of us are a little bit more vocal, but we're all Americans. We all appreciate the Constitution. Okay, today I wanted to talk about that and Independence Day, and I also wanted to talk about the insurrection on January 6th, and also an event that happened in the news that I saw as tonight while I was eating my dinner, about an event that occurred in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, that area. It was actually, I think it happened near Boston. A group of 11 men were apprehended. They were wearing military uniforms, and they were carrying rifles and pistols, and they were not Americans. They were on their way up to Maine for a training program. Apparently, they are in the United States. Their plan is to remind Moorish people that what about America and who they are and things like that. Okay, so what we have right now is a very interesting event that's occurring in the United States. The reason I'm doing this is because of the Iraq War and how we can get back to a point where we are all Americans and no longer divided, one America under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, including the Moors who are being arrested now for their training program. Okay, so I wanted to also talk about the rise of the global caliphate, the prophecy that was twisted and corrupted. Okay, now if you have ever watched any of my previous videos, you know that there's always three choices. We always have three choices: up, down, or straight ahead. Another way to look at them is heaven, hell, or purgatory. Okay, so heaven is where everybody's getting the life they've always wanted. We have our rights. We're creating the life that we've always wanted. The difference between heaven and hell is that in heaven there's a solution to your problem. So in heaven you're basically working on the solution. Everything has a solution. So that's what we're headed for, is for everybody to get to heaven, but heaven on earth. Okay, you don't have to die now to do that. We're creating heaven on earth. Hell is basically where you're in circular thinking patterns that you have to do something and you don't know what to do, and it's based on revenge. It's based on power games. It's based on fear and intimidation and things like that. Okay, purgatory, the straight ahead idea, is where you pass on the problem to future generations, and it takes 7 generations to undo the damage you've done. So in my vision that I had the other day, I saw many people going down into the games, straight down into the games, and other people going straight ahead. The vast majority of the people are going straight ahead, and nobody was going up into heaven. Nobody had a solution to the problems. So that's what I'm going to do now, is talk about solution to problems and unravel ideas so that you can see that there is a solution to all the problems that we're dealing with right now, including the rise of the global caliphate. When the preemptive strike occurred against Iraq, George W. Bush told a grand lie, just like Donald Trump did, but he just basically, his lies were not quite so blatant. He said there were weapons of mass destruction, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and the intent to use them. And he could, be here in a half an hour he had nuclear weapons and things like that. And all along, Hans Blix, the weapons inspector from the UN, said there were no weapons of mass destruction. So after the strike had occurred, then basically we got into a quagmire because there were no weapons of mass destruction, and it collapsed the U.S. power base. So then what happened at that point in time is that people were angry. They brought in the foreign fighters into the area, and it created this ripple of effects in Iraq. At first it was, we couldn't back out, and so the whole idea never was with the idea that they were going to get rid of that nasty Saddam Hussein. It was, of course, it was a matter of revenge, which is something that we've talked about over and over again. And it was a matter of, let's say, taking control of natural resources and strategic locations, and making sure that the United States had control in that area. So what happened, though, is when it became apparent at first, the Iraqi people were kind of okay. The majority of them were kind of okay with the idea because Saddam Hussein was oppressive to them in many ways. But at the same time, he was their leader, and he, as a dictator, he understood that if he was toppled, that's how he got in, is he toppled somebody else. So then, but it was from within. It was when people were tired of him. So he had to become oppressive to maintain his power base. But the power games stopped working when you played them on an innocent person, which is what happened with George Bush. Now, the rise of the Caliphate. So what happened at that point in time is I don't know how old the prophecy is, but prophecy is a potential future. It's either a warning or it's a promise. If it's kind of strange how it works, because it's a matter of kind of what you believe. So there's the technology team is going to go into time and how it works. There's actually, there's two different kinds of time. There's absolute time and there's relative time. So absolute time relative time is like a life cycle where you're born and you die, and every potential idea is basically one belief structure away from it. So let's say that if you are promised it's like spindles. It's like two different spindles, and you have a piece of paper on it like this. Okay, so you have a bunch of paper all lined up on the spindle. Well, each spindle is one belief structure apart, so you have a long row of spindles. And what happens is that the relative time has ended because opportunities has ended. And the reason for it is because the spindles, the number of papers on the spindle has these are your changes. So you have to change. With a prophecy, you have to change what you believe if it's a warning and if it's a promise. Because if it's a promise, it's in the spindle next to it, one belief structure away. You have to change what you believe. And if it's a warning, you also have to change because it's either on the spindle where you are or the one next to it. Okay, so let's say that you have to, the rise of a caliphate isn't necessarily, okay, that's what's going to happen. It is, this can be a warning that says, if you don't change what you believe, there will be a rise of a caliphate. Okay, now think about this for a minute, about the prophetic vision that I had the other day. If many people are going straight ahead, passing the problems on to future generations because they don't have plans that solve the problems, and some of them are going down into the idea of the rise of caliphate. Okay, we are going to, the prophecy is we are going to fulfill that prophecy, and we are the caliphate. We are going to take over the world. This is time for us to take over the world. So it's like a warning. Okay, so now we always have three choices. So what do we have? What is the idea of a global government? It's the international government that guarantees everybody the rights. That's up. That's guaranteeing everybody our unalienable rights. That is taking the U.S. Constitution, and we're a country. America is a country that has been a land of opportunity for many people. People have come here. We have many problems in our country, and many problems that have been passed on from the past, the people not solving the problems based on the root cause of the problem. So now what we're going to do is, so the international government would be, let's say the Asian countries or the Caliphate forming, and one person becoming the emperor of the planet. We don't want that. The other one is straight ahead, where we have all these different governments and they're all fighting and nobody gets along with each other and they're waging war with each other, which is what's been happening all along. And then what happens is, with these weapons of mass destruction, the wars will get worse and worse, and because they can be global in effect. Just like when Donald Trump used maximum pressure against Kim Jong-un and North Korea. Okay, that came very close to a nuclear battle, breaking out. And nobody wins in a nuclear war. I'll tell you what, they're examples of alien species that have had their planet destroyed by a nuclear type war, and basically they don't procreate, and they just have a shadow of a life at a time right now. And I don't have to go into that, but we don't want to follow the same path that they have taken, functioning out of fear. Okay, I've had experiences with that species before. Okay, so then, but I'll go into that in another video, the alien idea. Right now we're talking about the rise of the global caliphate. So the way that everybody goes up is to create the international government. The United States is a melting pot of cultures and religions, and we've all lived together basically for a long time in peace. We've had the opportunities to get our life on a higher level. Like I said, we're not perfect, but our organization is going to be working to purify the legal system as part of the creation of that. And we're going to go into how our foreign policy decisions have failed and why they have failed. And we're going to work to unravel these problems. So the first one is Iraq, the preemptive strike in Iraq. Why did that fail? What was the problem? So then, like I said, like with the rise of the after the preemptive strike, what happened is that these ripples of effects started to go out to bring in everybody on the planet, drag everybody into this idea of this potential future where we're spiraling down. Okay, so we have to start to understand that our Constitution is not just for America, it's for the whole world. This 4th of July, we can celebrate that it's possible for our Constitution to be put into a global a government, an international government that will guarantee to everybody our unalienable rights. And that way, that's the solution to everybody. We don't have to wage war anymore. The idea of the Space Force, boy, that sounds fun. I was one of the first people to see Star Wars. On the first day it came out, I was there. I drove almost 100 miles to go see that. And I remember it as I remember standing in the theater to watch it. The lobby of the theater, looking at the pictures and going, in just a little while, I'm going to know who all these people are, and it's going to be really fun. And so I aliens and space things and everything, but the idea of taking a space force and waging war out there just doesn't make any sense. That is down. So when we look at our military, the idea is very, very strong. For the people who are going straight ahead thinking, we have to do it because it's a matter of national security. We have to do this. We can't. We've worked hard for our rights and our liberties, and basically God gave us our rights and liberties. Yeah, I mean, the Constitution gives us rights, okay, for the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. God doesn't tell us to carry arms. We don't have to do that. No. So basically, what we have now is to unravel these things that are not based on the idea of what's in everyone's best interest. So the idea of the Constitution creates a government. It delineates a government. When I read the Iraq Constitution, I said, "Oh, these guys, it's not going to work." I knew by reading it that there would be a problem. When I read the UN Charter, I knew there would be a problem because they started to make a list of all the reasons why it's going to fail. Okay, and it doesn't work. So we have to figure out what does work. And the U.S. Constitution has kept a land of diverse cultures and religions at peace for a long time, 200 years, over 200 years, and the other idea is the principles of the cooperation of nature. That's the economic structure of it, where people make win-win agreements. Nations make win-win agreements, and that allows us to get what we need by giving just what is easy for us to give and benefits us to give, and we get back 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times what we gave. Now, I've had experiences where I've been able to kind of convince people that it's in their best interest to do a win-win agreement for something. People who are more open to this kind of thing, they understand win-win agreements and how they work and how they benefit them. And then what happens is then it builds trust and sets the stage for future agreements. And like I said, I've had experiences where I've been able to do that. Most people are not woken up enough spiritually to be able to understand the benefits of that. But imagine what would happen if instead, let's say the United States needed oil, and we were looking for oil, and instead of going to war and having it cost $1 billion a week, as it did for a long time, okay, what would happen if we had made a win-win agreement with Saddam Hussein? That we would share with him, invite him in to be part of the international government, and then we would set up a structure where we could get oil from him, and that it would benefit him to give it because he would be equal to all the other countries. They would have the 10 benefits for joining the international government, including world peace. Okay, he would be able to have expert advice on how to maintain his natural resources in the highest level from world-leading experts. The international government would come in and help him find other things, like what would happen if his sand, not just the oil, but what would happen if the sand was worth something that he has? He has lots of sand, okay? And not only that, pretty soon we're going to have, I'm going to share with you kind of like a little idea. One of the prophecies that we have a potential future is a promise, and then that's rather than a warning. So we have to change what we believe to get it. The idea of a chemical formula that allows people to turn oil into fine fabric. So instead of a country like Saudi Arabia or any of the countries that are tapped out on oil, they can just drill a little bit and then they will be able to, because the fabric this fabric will be like a really beautiful silk type fabric, will be so beautiful and so desirable that they'll be able to sell their oil, not burned in internal combustion engines, but be able to maintain their economy by just manufacturing this fine fabric. So that's one of the promises. See, for our plan for world peace to be accepted, everybody has to come out ahead. So it's going to be like Christmas for everybody, over and over again, these ideas where we're solving these problems, and in a way that allows everybody to get their life on a higher level. Okay, so now let's say that the United States goes into Iraq and takes their oil, and who benefits from that? Does that, by waging a war, does that help the Iraqi people? Does that help? Now, the United States, we experienced the foreign fighters coming in and doing this. So George Bush had told a grand lie, but Donald Trump also told the grand lie, the big lie. And basically, once the lie has been told, nobody knows the truth. It just reaches a point where nobody knows who to trust. So the way to build trust again is to make win-win agreements. But it has to be something that it's based on, like a person's talents and gifts or a nation's natural resources. It can't be, I'm going to steal your oil and then I'm going to enable you to sell that oil. I'm going to sell it for you and I'm going to make my share and then you can make your share, but we won't tell the people that they are basically getting screwed. Okay? It has to benefit everybody. It's like, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but that's something that I've experienced here with the organization here. People have been functioning on a very low level because they're trying to steal things and take them, but the games stop working, and basically there's always a backlash to the game. So you have to figure out, the games don't work. If what doesn't work, then you have to figure out what does work, and then you have to create what does work for you based on this idea. So we're making this paradigm shift to go up by understanding, getting rid of these ideas that seem like the military standing up and saying, we have to do this, we have to have $100 billion for this airplane, and we have to have $10 trillion for 10 new aircraft carriers, and we have to have this, and we have to have the Space Force, and we have to have a whole bunch of people who are willing to go up there and shoot to defend our country. And no, let's just start thinking a little bit clearer. So the rise of the Caliphate, the global Caliphate, was, let's say, a misunderstanding or a belief structure away from the idea of the international government. So we're looking at the rise of an international government that benefits everyone, or the one that benefits nobody, because let's say that if you put Abu Bakr Baghdadi, for example, as the caliph that's going to take over the planet because he controls ISIS, that's in nobody's best interest. If you take Vladimir Putin and make him the emperor of the planet, that's in nobody's best interest. If you take even his, because he'd be likely to be assassinated, because nobody really wants to have him the president of the emperor of the planet. If just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Okay. So that basically is all I wanted to say today. My idea of independence and celebrating the 4th of July is to take the U.S. Constitution and make it into a global international government. And then let's say we can invite all those people in. The alternatives is that, let's say, if these men, these foreign fighters, so to speak, are coming into the United States now, just like they did in Iraq, let's say that we have the battle going on between, like what happened in Iraq. What we did to Iraq is now happening in the United States. Okay, what we have to do is we have to understand that what we did was wrong. It's failed policy. It goes against universal law. And then what we have to do is we have to stop playing the games, and then we have to realize that we're no different than any other country, because what happened was it was a genocide. It devolved as a genocide. The judgment against Saddam Hussein was a genocide. The same thing that happened in Iraq was a genocide. Somebody's celebrating the 4th a little bit early tonight. Okay, so then the next thing is that we had the people becoming more oppressive, and the people standing up and fighting, and so we don't want to have the September or January 6th insurrection happening where there's a fight between the Republicans and the Democrats. We don't want that kind of a fight. We don't want a genocide breaking out in the United States, and we're very close to that right now. But what we have to do is we have to say stop. We have to start to understand why genocides are, how they come about, and how to stop them. And the best way to do it is to say stop, and just understand that you cannot get your life by perpetrating a genocide, by judging others to be evil. And isn't that kind of what's happening now? Is that, let's say that the people, okay, I'll go into this a little bit deeper. The people who perpetrate a genocide, who are judgmental like that, I'm going to use George W. Bush as an example, and Donald Trump too. He said Donald Trump actually is, Donald Trump admired his father. George W. Bush admired his father. When you admire somebody, you put that person on a pedestal, and then what you do is it creates a sense of judgment. You say, okay, I am going to compare this person with my father, and this person can't compare. It becomes black and white. So then what happens is that judgment allows them to judge other. Now, it's part of the act of revenge, and the people who do that, they want a combination of respect and money. So let's say George Bush stood up and he declared himself to be a war president. I'm a war president. And then basically what he was doing, he was going in there about the oil reserves and things like that. He was an oil man. Okay, so Donald Trump too, but Donald Trump was more the idea of playing the game of lust, sexual assault, and what he wanted was a combination of a voice and abundance. So you can tell by the pentacle of power what everybody wants, what power games they are. Now the games don't work because nobody's in agreement nobody was in agreement for Donald Trump to have a voice and tweeting all the time and to be president of the United States and telling everybody what to do. And then this combination of those two ideas were also making money off the thing, off his position. It wasn't in anyone's best interest. There wasn't anybody in agreement, and so it failed. So Donald Trump was able to do it for a little while, but it wasn't that he was ever going to do it. That wasn't his final idea. That wasn't how he was going to end his life. It was just like the revenge that he got on the Bidens and Obama and the Clintons. The revenge that he got brought him together with certain people who all played the same power games, and it gave him the idea that he had this coalition of countries. George Bush did the same thing. He made his coalition of countries, but what he did then is this revenge idea brought together it was his father who did the Gulf War, then he did the Iraq War, and then the coalition countries that were after the money and the contracts, then ISIS, and then Al-Qaeda. They all had the same idea. They were going to get revenge on Saddam Hussein. And imagine being in, let's say, in bed with the devil, so to speak, the idea of people who are the people that you're fighting, and they had the same goal. So now I've gone way off the idea here, and I just wanted to talk about how by unraveling all these ideas, by understanding how this all works and why it works and why it doesn't work, basically what we can do is we can, by unraveling this, we can make it possible for everybody to move ahead. If we unravel the idea of a vaccine, we have to have the vaccine. We have to have the vaccine. That's the only solution. No, it isn't the only solution, because God never said that you had to have a vaccine. So let's say we're leaving out the idea of God and the idea of science leaning on each other. By leaving out God and God's will, what happens is then we start to say we have to have the vaccine, we have to have the vaccine, but the vaccine isn't necessarily based on the root cause of the problem. So it's going straight ahead, and it's basically saying we're going to pass this on to future generations. In 10 years, people will still be getting that vaccine every year because we haven't figured out how to deal with the snakes yet. Okay, so there'll be more and more variants and more strains coming out as it evolves through the ripples. Okay, so that's what we're talking about now, is for everybody to move ahead. We have to start to unravel these ideas. God never intended for people to be sick. God never intended for anybody. We are creative in our thinking, and what we have to do is we have to start understanding how to create the life we want instead of the life we don't want. We don't want to have a vaccine every year, getting a booster for it and wondering if it's a new strain is going to come out and whether the vaccine is effective against it. How many people have to die before we start to unravel this idea about where the root cause of the problem is? Okay, so that is basically what I wanted to say. If there were 11 men from Morocco who were arrested in Boston, near Boston, on their way up to Maine so that they could practice shooting, so they could have a shooting war in the United States and start targeting people because they're whatever, I'm not going to judge them. I think basically there's a way to deal with all this stuff without it being so oppressive, without it triggering more people to be angry. And that's what I wanted to say tonight, is happy 4th of July, and just keep, instead of thinking that we have to go down into the power games or straight ahead because we have to do it this way, it's my way or the highway or whatever, we have to start looking at what allows everybody to get their life on a higher level. Okay, happy 4th of July. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe, please, because this information is important. Everybody needs to know about this. Thank you.